If you're thinking about digitizing your VHS or camcorder tapes with the ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV, then this video is for you, because I'm going to show you side-by-side comparisons with other methods. I'm going to walk you through the pros and cons and test the included video enhancement software to see how it stacks up. In February 2025, ClonerAlliance reached out to me and they offered to send me a device to test. They suggested the Box Pro, but after some research, I thought that maybe the ViewLite AV was a better fit for this channel because it has an S-video input. The Box Pro doesn't. When I told my kids over dinner that ClonerAlliance was sending me a free capture device, they asked why. I said, because I'm an influencer now, and their reaction was about what you'd expect. Before we jump into the comparisons, here's some quick context. There are a few ways to digitize your VHS, Video 8, High 8, other analog tapes. In the all-in-one category, there are devices like the ViewLite AV that I'm reviewing today, but there are also DVD recorders in that category. And over in the main category is my preferred method of using a standard definition capture card. So these are the four side-by-side comparisons we're going to do. First, we're going to compare the ViewLite AV to itself using two capture resolutions. Second, we'll compare my preferred method, the ATI All-in-Wonder 9600 XT. We'll compare that to the ViewLite. Third, we'll compare one of the better DVD recorders to the ViewLite. And fourth, we'll play back a VHS with a lot of waviness and jitteriness to see how the built-in line TBC feature works in the ViewLite AV. Okay, so this first comparison is Cloner versus Cloner. In the settings window, you can pick the video source, which in this case is S-Video. You can also pick a recorded resolution of either 1020 by 1080, 640 by 480, or something called auto, which will pick one of the other two resolutions automatically. And in my case, when I connected a VCR and picked auto, it correctly selected the 640 by 480 resolution. So that works well. Also, for all our tests, we selected the maximum video bitrate of 10 megabits per second and an audio bitrate of 320 kilobits per second. That's really the only important thing in the settings menu. Here's a comparison of the aspect ratio of those two options. I should mention that 640 by 480 is an aspect ratio of 4 by 3, whereas 1920 by 1080 is an aspect ratio of 16 by 9. So in other words, the ViewLite AV stretches the video as it upscales it. And I really wish it didn't do this, but that stretched out video can be narrowed again in Adobe Premiere Pro or your other video editing software, which is what you're looking at here. Anyway, here's the side-by-side comparison. And to my eyes, there's no difference between the 640 by 480 version upscaled in Premiere Pro and the one that was upscaled automatically by ViewLite AV. And here's a close-up. Now, there are issues with it, which we will get to in the next comparison. But for now, I think we can conclude that if you capture at 1920 by 1080, it stretches the video from 4 by 3 to 16 by 9. And there doesn't appear to be any visual difference between the two, so therefore I recommend that you just simply capture at 640 by 480. I also recommend that you click the like button on whatever resolution device you are watching this video now. Okay, for our second comparison, let's compare this all-in-one device with the ATI All-in-Wonder. You see what I did there? The ATI All-in-Wonder 9600 XT is on the left, the ViewLite AV is on the right. The nerdy technical details about the VCR and the virtual dub settings are also listed above. And I deinterlaced the ATI version using software. Now, the first thing you notice is that the ViewLite AV version is brighter. And I guess that's because there's no way to manually adjust it, whereas in my, call it finely tuned ATI capture, I was able to use the histogram feature in virtual dub to get the correct brightness and contrast settings done before I started capturing. The second difference may be harder to spot, but if we look at some still frames, I think you will see what I mean. So here's a side-by-side image that shows the ViewLite is too bright and some detail is being lost, like that image of the NEC computer. Now here's a still frame heavily zoomed in on a sign, and you can see that the ATI version on the left is sharper and or has better contrast, which somehow makes the words just arrived easier to read. But there's something else, actually something else more important. On the right side, you'll notice stepping artifacts, which are sometimes called jaggies, along the black line. This is a symptom of imperfect deinterlacing, in this case done on the fly in the device. Now compare that to the one on the left, which was deinterlaced using software after the fact. For me, this really is a big deal, and it's a deal breaker. I could maybe live with a video that was a bit too bright, but I can't live with these jaggies, especially if I know that it's not necessary for them to be there. There is another way. And then there is the ghosting, which is visible as the words fly over the image. And this is also a consequence of that on-the-fly hardware deinterlacing. Here's another clip. This time I'm using a high-8 camcorder footage, and the ViewLiteAV on-the-fly deinterlacing is creating jaggies here as well. So after this first set of tests, the only positive thing I can say about the ViewLiteAV is that it's easy to use, because I don't like the way it deinterlaces on the fly, which leads to two different types of artifacts, the jaggies and the ghosting. Now let's move on to the next test, where we will compare the ATI version, which was deinterlaced with QT-GMC and upscaled with NNEDI3, and we'll compare that to the ViewLiteAV at 1920 by 1080. Now, it pretty much looks the same as our previous comparison. I should also point out that I didn't apply any denoise or degrain filters on the ATI version. Normally I would if I was trying to make it look as good as possible, but I didn't do it here. Okay, so far we've compared the Cloner ViewLiteAV against itself. We've compared it against the very good ATI All-in-Wonder 9600 XT. And next we'll compare it to a pretty good DVD recorder, the Samsung R120. The Samsung digitizes to 640 by 480 as an interlaced video file, and this is going to be an important factor. I turned on the 3D noise reduction, by the way, in the Samsung, because I'm pretty sure the ViewLiteAV is also applying some type of noise reduction, so I want this comparison to be as fair as possible. And then after I captured the video, I deinterlaced and I upscaled the video using software. Now, this is a much more interesting comparison, I think, because these are really closer in quality. I find that the Samsung is making things even brighter than the ViewLiteAV, so that's a win for the ViewLiteAV. But if you look closely, the Samsung does not have those same artifacts that we call jaggies, and it doesn't have any ghosting. And the reason it doesn't have these artifacts is because the Samsung produces an interlaced video file, and because it was interlaced, it allowed me to properly deinterlace the video file with software using the QT-GMC tool in the software hybrid. Because my Samsung interlaced video can be deinterlaced properly in post, this fact alone makes me prefer it to the ViewLiteAV. And this is too bad, because in every other way, I prefer the ViewLiteAV. I like the little screen it comes with. I like that it uses the H.264 codec over Samsung's use of the MPEG-2 codec. I love the fact that the ViewLiteAV saves the video onto either a S-video card or a USB flash card. These are great features, but the Achilles heel is that it deinterlaces on the fly. In April 2025, the ViewLiteAV costs $171 US at Amazon. The Samsung is no longer sold new, so you can find it online for actually even more than the ViewLite, but you can also find the Samsung DVD recorder or a comparable one for $10 to $20 at a thrift store. You'll also need blank DVD-R discs for every hour of video. So far, we've compared the Cloner ViewLiteAV to itself, we've compared it to the ATI All-in-Wonder, and to a Samsung DVD recorder. So what's next? Well, in this test, I wanted to see if the ViewLiteAV is able to correct really bad tapes with waviness problems. And the short answer is yes. As you can see, the ViewLite corrects the problem, whereas the ATI 9600 XT does not. Now, if you've gone down this rabbit hole, you know that the solution is to use a VCR that has a line TBC feature, or failing that, you can add a DVD recorder to the workflow in pass-through mode, and this helps get rid of that waviness. But the bottom line is that the ClonerAlliance ViewLiteAV has a line TBC, just like those other all-in-one devices, the DVD recorders, and it took care of this issue. So, do I recommend a ViewLite AV? Well, it depends. If you're doing this as a business, then definitely not. If somebody has trusted you to preserve their precious tapes, then they really deserve more care. There's no control of brightness and contrast before you capture. The ViewLite deinterlaces on the fly, which creates artifacts. And then there's that missing option to upscale to 4:3 aspect ratio. And as I said, to me, the deinterlacing issue is the deal breaker. But if you're looking for a very easy solution for yourself, for something that has a screen, an S-video input, an easy way to save files, then maybe this is for you. And you also get a device that allows you to connect your retro gaming console, since it has an HDMI out, which means you don't need a device like the one on the right. You can also connect a mini stereo jack to the auxiliary port, and you can record sounds from another device. So for instance, I connected my childhood portable radio, the Panasonic RD10, and I recorded live radio onto it. Now, can I just use the line in on my computer? Yes, I could, but then I'd have to turn on the computer and open the audio record applications, and frankly, this is just much quicker. So this device, the ClonerAlliance device, can do a few things that makes it quite useful to have around. For the final section of this video, I want to demonstrate the optional software that comes with the device. There is the ClonerAlliance Helper software, which is a streaming software, and you can think of it as a very simple replacement for something like OBS. It works well enough, but I don't really see the need for it since the ViewLite AV device saves the files locally on a USB flash drive or an SD card. And by the way, I was curious and I tested it and I found that the device still deinterlaces on the fly before outputting via the HDMI port. Anyway, the HDMI port isn't useful if you're using this just to digitize your tapes, but as I said earlier, it could be useful if you want to connect a retro gaming console, or I guess even just connect your VCR to your flat panel television and just simply watch tapes that way. Okay, the next software I wanted to try is what's called the MP4 Cloner. And this includes a few utilities inside. It includes a DVD and Blu-ray burner software. It also does some simple conversions, and there's a software to combine and merge MP4 files. But really the one I wanted to try was the trim software. And it is easy to use, but every time I loaded the 640 by 480 video file, which, as I said before, has an aspect ratio 4:3, it would always output the trimmed version of the video to a 16:9 aspect ratio. In other words, it stretched out the video. Now, just to give you a comparison, here is a much older and a much better software, the AVI Demux software. And it was able to trim the video perfectly, and it was able to keep it in the 4:3 aspect ratio. The final software I tested was the AI Video Enhancer. Now, it's very easy to use. There's not a lot of options. And you can choose between either BSRGAN X2, BSRGAN X4, or the REALESR JPEG X4. On my system, a 1-minute clip took about 90 minutes to process using the BSRGAN X2 model, and a bit longer with the REALESR JPEG X4 model. Okay, let's see what each model produces. Now, on the left is the raw capture using the ViewLite AV, and on the right is that same video that's now been processed with the BSRGAN X2 model. Now you can see overall it creates the impression of sharp video, right? The on-screen graphics look actually really good, but because this is a VHS video, this type of software, including the BSRGAN model, is going to struggle with faces and with other details. But if you look at this computer, it does a pretty decent job with that. By the way, BSRGAN stands for Blind Super Resolution Generative Adversarial Network. Now here's an explanation. I'm not an expert. There are many of these models, including inside the software hybrid that we will look at in a moment. But first, on the left is the raw capture using the ViewLite AV, and now on the right is the video processed with the REALESR JPEG X4 model. As we just saw, ClonerAlliance recommends this for animation, and in my own research I read that it's good for dealing with blocky JPEG artifacts, but not analog noise or blur. So in other words, it's not really helping much with VHS videos. And when looking at this on my computer, I can see maybe a tiny reduction in noise on the right, but it essentially looks the same to me. So I just compared video captured with the ViewLite AV with a version that was enhanced with the BSRGAN AI model and then the REALESRGAN JPEG model. And now I'm going to try a different workflow entirely. I'll use the video I captured with the very good ATI All-in-Wonder 9600 XT video capture, and I'll run that video through the REALESRGAN model, which is available inside the free software hybrid, which I highly recommend. You can find videos on this channel how to use the hybrid software. The most noticeable thing is that the ViewLite workflow on the right has graphic overlays that look a bit jumpy in comparison to the one on the left. As for the enhancement themselves, I think it's pretty close. I'd like to hear your feedback on which enhancement model you prefer. But I should mention that I never use any of these AI enhancement models because I think VHS quality footage always looks weird after it runs through these tools. And anyways, I have other videos on the channel showing the relatively minor enhancements that I do to denoise and degrain a bit. Okay, so let's sum up. If you're digitizing old camcorder tapes and VHS tapes, you know yourself best. If you want an easy solution, then go ahead and buy the ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV. But if you've spent hours at videohelp.com forum or digitalfaq.com forum trying to figure out what to buy and you're somebody who's computer savvy, then I don't think this is for you. So what do I like about the ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV? Well, it is very easy to use, and you don't need a computer, and you definitely don't need to build an old XP computer like the one I did. You don't even need a monitor because it has a little screen built in. And you can save your 2-hour videotape footage to a USB flash drive or an SD card, which you can then easily transfer to a computer. The main weakness of the ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV is that it deinterlaces on the fly, and it leaves behind some artifacts. What about DVD recorders? Well, they're also very easy to use, and I like that they avoid the automatic deinterlacing issue. But assuming you want to share your video to YouTube, you'll need to put that DVD you just recorded onto your computer DVD player, assuming you have one. You'll need to copy those files to the desktop. You'll need to extract the VOB files from the DVD disk. You'll need to deinterlace it with software, save it as an H.264 file to get it ready for YouTube. This isn't overly complicated for somebody like me, but not everybody is like me. I get it. And there's one more problem with this method, frankly, is that if you record at the highest bitrate setting, which I recommend, you'll only be able to record about 60 minutes of video onto a DVD-R disc. So if your video is longer, you'll have to stop the recording, put in another DVD, and continue. The ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV does not have this problem. Bottom line, I don't recommend the ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV for people who have the inclination and the time to learn how to digitize VHS and camcorder tapes the recommended way, whether that's what I'll call the DigitalFAQ method, or even the more time-consuming but very good VHS-Decode method. But if you just want to get your video digitization project done, and if you're willing to accept some trade-offs to quality, then the ClonerAlliance ViewLite AV is an easy-to-use, all-in-one solution that works.